finding alignment with one's goals, finding alignment with one's focus, finding alignment with one's joy and power, and focusing in on that. It's so interesting how quickly the universe will, of course, abhor that vacuum and fill in that space with what we really want. Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge. Welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast, Growth to Acquisition. I'm the owner and founder of Job Calls. We're a home services marketing agency specializing in heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and remodeling contractors. For more information about Job Calls, visit us online at www.jobcalls.com. Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge with Job Calls, and welcome back to another episode of Home Services Marketing, Growth to Acquisition. In this week's episode, I want to talk about a theme that's been coming up for me quite a bit, and that theme is alignment. I'm going to start by sharing a little story. So one of the things that I really enjoy doing is virtual CMO work, or fractional CMO work, really. And what that means is that I come in at a deeper level to, instead of just doing, say, marketing for a company, it's really looking at a high level in terms of strategy, where we need to go, not just from a lead generation perspective, but in the long run, what type of marketing systems are we going to need? What type of sales systems are we going to need? And then tracking all of the metrics through that as we explore different marketing initiatives, looking at the brand itself. There's just a lot that goes into it. And so I've been working as a fractional CMO for a construction company. And most recently, I've had to actually let go of that relationship. And it's kind of a near and dear thing to my heart, frankly, because I'm one of these types of humans, if you will, that really feels like at the end of the day, I can accomplish anything, or I can conquer anything. And I think that lends itself to my entrepreneurial scrappiness. I think that it really is just, there's a dogged determination that I have, and I also value in my clients as well. And what I realized is that determination to make it work at all costs and to make a relationship work at all costs was absolutely costing me. First and foremost, it was costing me in my focus. It was costing me in my happiness. I was stressed all the time with this organization. It felt to me as though I was very much in my lane, doing my part, and getting the results that I would expect, frankly, from the systems that we had developed for this organization. The challenge was, though, is we really didn't have the same buy-in from the partners of this company. And when push came to shove, they weren't really willing to have that same dogged determination to succeed at all costs. And so what ends up happening then, when you have, let's say, it's kind of a tug of war, right? You have one person or a group of people who are pulling in one direction, and then you have other people digging in their heels. It's a fight, right? It's a fight to try to cross the finish line when you're being pulled in opposite directions. And that is exactly what was happening with me. And ultimately, I had to really look at this thing and say, okay, how important is this, really? I mean, sure, I like making money. I like helping companies grow. I especially like helping companies grow all the way to acquisition. But is it worth it in terms of my own sanity? Is it worth it in terms of my happiness? Is it worth all of the stress? Is it worth the sleepless nights? Is it worth trying to make something succeed at all costs? And in this particular instance, it was not. And since then, since choosing to leave, since choosing to step away, there's this principle that I've learned over the years, and that is that the universe abhors a vacuum. And so what I found was exactly what I thought that I would find, and that is that as soon as I took my focus away from this thing over here that was struggling, that was frankly dysfunctional, that really wasn't working, all of a sudden the alignment starts happening in the rest of my life and in my business, and all of these new opportunities start to open up. And quite literally in the last week, through just 2 separate networking events. One of them, we sponsored a hole at a golf tournament for the Plumbing and Heating Contractors Association in my area. And another one was, frankly, just one of my clients asked me to sit in on a B&I meeting for her this morning. But I've had 7 heating and air conditioning and plumbing companies that have come out of this that, frankly, are probably a lot better opportunities for me, for my agency, Interestingly enough, all of them are interested in growing to acquisition, and which is really what our forte is. And at the end of the day, clearing out that old energy, finding alignment with one's goals, finding alignment with one's focus, finding alignment with one's joy and power, and focusing in on that. It's so interesting how quickly the universe will, of course, abhor that vacuum and fill in that space with what we really want. The point in all of this, my friends, is that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to change directions. It is okay to change strategies. And when things are not working, try to make them work. Give it time, give it space for that opportunity to flesh itself out. I'm all about creating process. I'm all about eliminating problems. We use a system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System at Job Calls. That's from the book Traction, if you're not familiar with that. And it's really about systematically reducing problems in your business. But there are some problems that frankly can't be fixed. Personality conflicts, partnership disagreements. Sometimes, and we're seeing this right now in the market quite a bit, the fact of the matter is there's just less volume out there for jobs, right? Air conditioning contractors are hurting, plumbing contractors are hurting, remodeling and especially home builders are really hurting right now. And sometimes what was working stops working. And when that happens and those solutions aren't forthcoming, and you're in a place where I was, where it starts getting to be where you just hate going to work every day, that, my friends, is the universe telling you that it is time to make a shift. It is time to pivot. It is time to change directions. It doesn't necessarily mean wholesale uprooting everything, throwing away, all of it and starting over. But it does sometimes mean going in with a scalpel and cutting out the pieces that aren't actually working anymore. Unfortunately, that's something that I had to do recently. And when that happens, that's when the doors can really start to open. That's when new opportunities can start to come in. That's where new people and new energy can start to come in. And I'm already seeing that happen with me after making that tough decision. So none of us really like to have to let go. But most importantly, when we are in that place where it's just not working anymore and everything is telling us to let go and we don't, and we keep trying to hold on, that's when we just kind of get stuck. And my hope for you, friends, is that if that is what you're experiencing in your company or in your business right now, that you'll take a good hard look at those things. You'll ask yourself, what's really going on here? And if a change is necessary, then make that change and make it quick. Because yes, change is scary, but I promise you there's hope on the other side. There's new opportunity on the other side. And until you're willing to walk through that door, that new door, nothing can happen until we take action. And that's just a basic tenet of how the universe works. So go ahead and sign up for our newsletter. It's in the show notes. If you're here on the podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube, that's going to be in the description. We'd like to get your feedback on what you're hearing. And if you'd like to have me cover any specifics, then just tell me what's on your mind. I recently talked in just a little video that I did for social media about what's happening in terms of marketing. Okay. And specifically to remodeling in this particular case, the ads that are starting to really work well now, or, they've seen a pretty significant downturn and a whole bunch of people entering the market. Anyway, the short of it is that people, it's going in and getting high ticket dollars and being able to walk out of your door and stumble onto a deal, or that's just not happening anymore. And so that pivot then for these contractors is more about recognizing that your average job size is going to come down, that you've got to do stuff more like, instead of replacing cabinets, it's about refacing cabinets as a lead in, right? And finding those opportunities where you can get in, still develop a customer, and then upsell on the back end. So that might be a good example. Same thing with air conditioning, something like that. So here's a perfect example. One of the best performing ads that we have right now in the remodeling space is don't replace, reface. Okay, well, what does that mean? So if you're in the kitchen remodeling space, you already know that custom cabinets are one of the higher margin services that you can provide. And they're kind of that basic core tenet of any kitchen remodel and a lot of bathroom remodels as well, because you're doing new vanities, that sort of thing. Well, the challenge is that since the economy has started to take a little bit of a dive, interest rates are up, which means cash is less available. The fact of the matter is that homeowners are doing what, homeowners do during economic downturns, and they're puckering up and they're getting really tight, and there's just less money available to go around. And so one of the pivots that we're leading our remodeling contractors through is more of a let's get through the door first and then upsell later. And so we're running ads now and really generating content around don't replace, reface, because we can come in and refinish existing cabinetry for substantially less than doing custom cabinets. And in a lot of cases for a remodeler, that's going to mean the difference between getting the kitchen remodel that you want to get or not getting that kitchen remodel. But here's the reality. If you can come in and start to pivot and think laterally here just a little bit, instead of saying, okay, we need to, we're not going to do kitchen remodels for anything less than $75,000 and a 30% margin or whatever gross margin percentage it is that you're targeting on your jobs. I'm going to encourage you to think about this a little bit differently, to let go of that paradigm that frankly works when you can stumble out of your door and fall across a deal, right? Because when real estate's going up, you remodelers all do incredibly well, you home builders all do incredibly well, because frankly, everybody's building or remodeling. But when the economics of our nation downturn and cash is less available, then you've got to get strategic about it. And holding on to those high margins, holding on to those ideas of what a minimum deal looks like for you might be actually the thing that's going to take you under with everybody else who's not able to shift and pivot. And so those are the types of scenarios where you have an opportunity then to come in and say, well, how can we get our foot in the door with a prospect, let's just say, maybe through an offer like, let us come in and reface your cabinets and maybe redo your flooring in your kitchen, right? Then you go ahead and do that. And suddenly, guess what ends up happening? You've probably already know this, but while you're in the home, that homeowner goes, I have this other little project over here. Okay, well, let's take a look at that. There's another $7,500 that comes from changing around a closet. And then once you do that, they go, I've got this other thing that I've been thinking out around over here now that you're here. And that scope creep will start to happen. And what we're seeing now with our remodeling clients is by making that shift and making that pivot and bringing themselves into alignment with what's actually happening economically, what's happening in our nation, what's happening with buyers, and how liberal or not liberal they're willing to be with their cash. It's time to pivot. It's time to get into that alignment. It's time to really look at how am I going to make sure that I'm not only going to survive, but also thrive in the future. And oftentimes it really is just letting go of this paradigm that we sometimes get so stuck in where things have to look this way and the outcome has to look this way. And when we're trying to control outcomes, we're trying to control something that is absolutely uncontrollable. And that's what leads to unmanageability in both our lives and our business. And so I'm going to encourage you to start to really look then at how I can bring myself into alignment with what's happening both out there as well as in my business. So be sure to follow us on social media. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Those are all down in the show notes. Thank you again for listening. I'm Adam Loveridge with Job Calls, and this is the Home Services Marketing Podcast, Growth to Acquisition, and I'll see you next time.